Hi guys, let's make a boss. So hopefully following along in this video will help you know where to get started on a boss. So hopefully this video helps you in that way. It'll just show you my process. I'm like focusing on the programming. It's mostly focusing on giving people an idea where to start with programming for Fangame bosses. So I'm sort of cheating. I've already planned out the attacks and stuff. And I've already made a bunch of graphics, and I'm not worrying about sound, and I'm also not worrying about balancing or any of or playtesting. So just the programming, just disclaimer. So that's the plan. I read the video description. I probably have more things to say there. Also enable annotations for the YouTube video because I might add some stuff. Who knows? I might make more videos like this. I have this will be focused on making this one boss, but I might have more topics that I could potentially do. So, anything else I wanted to say? No? Okay, so I encourage you to follow along. I encourage you to follow along. I included the assets in the video description, so you can download those. You should pause the video if you want to. Hopefully it'll help if you just literally type in the code I do and stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. So let me first start off by creating a group of sprites. Well, I'm going to call this, it's going to be like a bird boss. If you've already downloaded the graphics, you'll see. I'm going to call it hawk because I sort of traced a hawk. So I made the graphics. So I'm going to create sprite, load, and here let's select these two, which are the main animation frames. So here's our two images. We're going to click center, which means when I create the object at a certain coordinate, it's centered here. That's pretty obvious. Precise collision checking. Otherwise, it would be this box, but if I check precise collision checking, it's now like this, and it changes each animation frame, which is what we want in this case. Sometimes you might not. Sometimes you might want the square. So I'm going to call this SHK boss, or let's call it hawk fly. So I chose SHK, S stands for sprite. Instead of SPR, I typed in HK because it's like hawk, like H and K. And so if I have a bunch of SPR, say I'm making a huge game and I have 10 bosses, I don't want to have overlaps. So if I have SPR boss, it's better to have it SHK boss. You know what I mean? So they don't overlap. So what other sprites do I want? I also want to import my block sprite. I'm going to do it as a sprite instead of a tile map. Or is that what they're called? I think so. SHK block. And I'm going to leave the origin in the top left. And I'm not going to check this because we don't need it. It's just a square. So objects. Let's create a new group just for these guys, hawk. And I'm going to create OHK boss. The sprite is going to start out with hawk fly. Parent, we're going to set it as killers, and this is how you make something killer. You set the parent to be killer. And we're going to create the create event, and this is something you're going to do very often. You're going to click control, and you're going to click this and drag it in, and that's how you start. And it's really annoying. And they fixed it in GameMaker Studio too, but it's still annoying. So I'm going to type in image speed equals to 1 divided by 10. So the equals is called the assignment operator. Well, this kind of equals. There's two kinds of equals. So we'll worry about that later. This is one animation frame every 10 game frames. So that's kind of what we want. Okay. And now let's create a new, yeah, that's correct. OHK block. Sprite's going to be this guy. And we're going to check this to be solid. And the parent is going to be block. And that's how you make a block. That's not the actual block object. Parent, but also don't forget the solid. So let's also make a room. We're going to right click duplicate our template because that's what it's for. R hawk boss. Alright. Now in this room, we're going to have a bunch of these blocks. So you can hold Control Shift. That's what I want. To hold Control Shift to place a bunch like this. Pretty useful tip. And you can hold Shift and then right click to delete a bunch. Why they're different hotkeys, no one knows. And they're also changed from GameMaker 8. No one will ever know that either, why that happened. I don't really like this platform shape. Maybe what I want is like more like that. Maybe I want it to be symmetrical. Okay, I think that's symmetrical. Is it? Yeah, that's symmetrical. All right, that's. I shouldn't be obsessing over this. Anyways, now let's put in player start, and then of course the boss. Oops. So we'll have the boss start like over here. So, and now to actually get to the room, let's go to world, set global options, R, Hawk boss. Okay. And I think let's see if that works. And of course we gotta wait for all the sounds. I should have really taken out all these musics. Anyways. Okay. Alright, cool. So we're in the boss room. If I could touch this guy, he would kill me. But we're off to a good start. Alright, so my plan for the first attack, here's my plan. And I already spent a while thinking of this. So the boss is going to go down, touch the ground, grab some rocks, and while he's going down, you can shoot him once he's down here. And then he goes up, and he flies to your current X position. So if I'm standing over here, he'll fly like right over here. And then he'll stop, throw the rocks, which will be like a barrage. Then I have to dodge him down here. And then he will go down and then pick up more rocks and then go up, go to my position, wherever I might be, and then throw the rocks, go down, go up, track me, go down, yeah. So kind of like that. That's the plan. Let's get to it. So how I might do this is, here's a common pattern. It's you have a state variable. You could call it a finite state machine. I probably shouldn't say technical terms too much because I don't know much about it. So, or in this context. So let's have phase 1 state, because I plan to have multiple phases, spoiler alert, equals to 0. And 0 is just arbitrary. You can have it whatever you want if you want, as long as you keep the rest of your code consistent. So now we're going to go to step event and do the ritual, which is control, drag in the code. And then here we're going to let me move my paper. So we're going to have an if statement. If phase 1 state equals to 0, open squiggly, enter, close squiggly. So this, whatever we put inside here, will execute only if the state is 0. And then this equals does not assign 0 to phase state. It checks if it's equal to, because if. Anyways, then I'm going to click tab, press tab, and then y plus equals to 3. And this is the same thing as typing y equals y plus 3. But it's just like a shorthand to do y plus equals 3. So let's see if that works. So this phase starts out at 0, and it should execute this code because it is 0. And it does. And then it goes down and behind the world. Let's change that. Let's make the block have like 1,000. I don't want to use tiles because I have plans later. Hopefully they fall through. So no, hopefully they don't fall through. I forget how the phrase goes. Anyways, now we want to at some point stop going down. So how do we do that? Here's how I would do that. And if you're following along and you have no idea how GameMaker coding works, just type in what I type and you'll learn as you go along. The idea is, once, like, over the years or over the whatever's months, you will learn and expand your toolbox. And if your toolbox is starting out empty, you just have to you know, learn stuff. Anyways, to stop, we're going to do if place missing x, y object block. So just copy that in. Then this code inside this if statement will execute if we were colliding with a block. Pretty straightforward. And then x and y is like, if I wanted to, I could type in y plus 100, and then this will check if I'm colliding with a block 100 pixels below myself. If that, like, it'll check 100 pixels below the hitbox, but we just want our current position. And then here we're going to do phase state equals 1. Okay, and so now it should stop moving once we touch the block, because in phase 1 state we no longer execute and do y plus 3. So, and as we expected, it stops. It's good. Now we're going to do if phase 1 state is 1. Also, I highly encourage you to use tabs like I'm doing. Just get in the habit of doing it. Formatting your code, very important. And putting all these little spaces, it's very nice. So we could, let's just actually put in an else, which means obviously these two things will never happen at the same time. Here's a difference. If this just occurred, we set phase to 1, this will execute in here, the same frame of the game. But if we leave else if, it will skip it and then just do the next one. Anyways, you don't have to worry too much about that. So here we're going to do y minus equal to 3. And so now it should start moving up. And then now we want it to stop moving up at some point. So if y is less than 100, we're going to do phase 1 state equals 2. So just like this, except we're comparing y, so we just stop at an arbitrary point instead of colliding with something. Else if phase 1 state equals 2. So if we're in phase 2 now, we're going to track the player. So let's just do x minus equal 1 for now, because we don't know where to stop. And we will make him stop later. So let's just see if this works. All right, that's correct. Actually, I should put in 3 there. And now he's just going to go left forever. So at this point, we want to set a point in the room that the hawk is going to travel to and then stop. So how can we do that? Here's how I might do it. I'm going to create an object. There's actually at this point there's many ways to do it. Like, you could do it whatever way you want, but I'm showing you my way. So other people might do it a different way. So OHK phase 1 targets, and then this sprite we're gonna have. I'm just gonna set it to, what's it called? Where is it? Trigger mask, just so you can see it. It's gonna stay visible for now, and then that's all. It's gonna be an empty object, and we're gonna use. You might think, why do you have an empty object? What's the point? You'll see. So we're not gonna place it in the room actually. We're going to edit the boss. At this point, we're going to do instance create object player.x, object player.y, OHK phase 1 target. And actually, let's change this y position to 0. So this creates at player position x this object. Let's just see that. Let's just make sure that works. Alright, cool. I created it here, and then if I run the game again, I could have just pressed R. I don't know why I closed the game. Force of habit. And if I stand over here, it creates it over here. And now we just need to make the bird move there and then stop. So here's how we're going to do that. Actually, here's one thing I have to mention. What if the player is dead at this point? What happens? In GameMaker 8, there's no problem. But in GameMaker Studio, there is a problem. And when you could argue in GameMaker 8 there's a problem. So if I'm dead, there's now an error that pops up, and that is unable to find any instance for object index 10 name object player. And that means it tells you GML object OHK boss step normal event line 12. So this tells us, oh, it's an OHK boss. Oh, it's at line 12. So it's right here, it's causing the error. And then it even tells you the line of code. and this means there is no object player. Obviously, we know what's going on. But here's how I fix that. We only want to create this thing. Well, here, let's put this here. If y is less than 100 and instance underscore exists, object player. So if the player does not exist, what do you think is going to happen? You can pause the video and try to figure out what you think is going to happen if you want. Oh, okay, so that's what happens if the player does exist. If it doesn't exist, the bird just flies up forever. And that's kind of funny, so I'm going to leave it in. But that's kind of a simple way to deal with it. So whenever you use a dot, you always have to make sure that the object you're doing a dot with exists. Otherwise, you get an error. Otherwise you might get an error, and you never know. You have to always be careful whenever you use a dot. Okay, so that's why I wrapped it in instance exists. So here we want to do if. So here's we want. Sometimes we want to do x minus equal to 3, but sometimes we want to move. Sometimes we want to move left. Sometimes we want to move right. How do we tell which way to move? Well, here's how we can do it. If OHK phase 1 target. That's not OHK. Dot x is greater than Rx, which you access by just x. Actually, that's pretty obvious because we already did that a million times. We're going to do x plus equal to 3, and then else, and that's just if it's the other way around. So now this should hopefully work. So if it's to the right, then it moves to the right, and then jitters because it moves moving right, left, right, left, right, left. So that works. And then here, how do we make it stop? So if we're moving right, and then we detect if x is greater than, if we just passed it, which means we just moved past it, so now it's greater than, we're going to do phase 1 state equals 3. And likewise, we're going to copy this, paste it here, and if it's less than. This might be a little bit broken. I'm not sure. Let's do greater than equal just to be sure. And I'm sort of being lazy by just putting in greater than equal and less than or equal here. But sort of setting a bad example. I don't know. Anyways, so this shouldn't cause any errors, I hope. So in order to make this code a little bit cleaner, we're going to do, so this should work, by the way. This should work, but in order to make it a little cleaner, we're going to do var target x equals, and we're going to copy this, put it here, and then we're going to replace target x with these three things, which makes the code a little bit neater. And what's also nice about this is if I ever change where this is targeting to, if I ever decide not to use an object or whatever, I can just change it here and I don't have to change it in 3 places. You might not think that's very useful here, and it's not really that useful, but in other places, having a variable like this, instead of copying it like 5 times down here, is very useful. And it's good to get in the habit of always doing that. So, yeah. Let's just make sure this works. Great, and it stops and does not jitter, which is what we wanted. So let's just test to make sure it works the other way too. Always test to make sure things work, because even if it seems they work, you never know. Perfect. So now let's actually also do instance. So we're going to type in with OHK phase 1 target instance destroy. And we're going to copy this and also put it here, just to destroy the phase 1 target, obviously. Don't worry about what with means, just copy this. That's how it works. So else if phase 1 state is 3. So now we want to, actually, no. Here at this point, we're going to worry about throwing the projectiles later. we're going to type in 0, and so it's going to loop back around. Let's see if this works. Okay. All right, it's looking like it's working. That's pretty cool. All right, and then he kills you. So this is not a very challenging boss so far. Well, he flies off the screen. I love that. Anyways, so what's next? Next is throwing the projectiles. So let's what's the best way to do this? Let's actually make a variable. This is going to be a little bit convoluted, but whatever. Var done equals to false. And then we're going to do, instead of copying, see how this is the same exact thing? We're going to let's actually do if done, and then we're going to move these, like just have it in one place. And then in these two places, we're going to set done equals true. And then now here we can also create some projectiles, so we don't have to copy the projectile code in two places too. This is also a good thing to keep in mind. So if, no, there's no if. We just do var r equals instance create, and then we actually need to create a new object. So let's do that. OHK projectile, or OHK proj1. Because we're probably going to have multiple projectiles throughout the boss fight. We need a new sprite. And thankfully, I've already made a handy-dandy stone sprite. Typed in stock. Anyways, precise, because I want that. And click center, because if I spawn at a position, I want it to spawn like this, instead of like below it and to the right. Set the sprite. Parent should be player killer. And then that's about it. You could add some code here to make it spin, which we might do it later, but we're not going to worry about that for now. So instance create x comma y comma hk proj1, and then with right now, if we run this code, this will just stand still. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change these all to 5. And actually, you know what I'm actually going to do before we run the code? See how there's these 3s everywhere? What if I want to make it go faster? I have to change these 4 3s. So what I should have done, or actually, no, it doesn't matter. You don't want to create too many variables that you're never going to need. So move speed equals to, let's change it to 5 actually, because I want it to go faster for testing purposes. So I'm going to change this to move speed, and then move speed, and then all these 4 places where the 3s are. So let's see if that works. All right, and it deposits a little projectile in the air. Anyways, so let's make these, let's make the boss have depth like 10, so everything else is on top of it. And then now we need to make these objects like move toward the player, if that makes sense. So, or move, I don't know why. Okay, anyways, what am I thinking? We can do R. The reason I typed in var R is so we can save this projectile and then now modify it. So R dot speed equals 5. Actually, what's important is R dot direction equals random 360. We'll change this later. This is just for testing. And you also need a semicolon here, because don't worry about it, but you just do. If you ever see an error like this, and you're like, what the hell? Semicolon with the var. See, direction and speed, these are like red, which means just like how x and y were red, that means they're built-in variables. So yeah, direction is direction from 0 to 360. Speed is speed in terms of pixels per second, or I mean pixels per frame. And then we're going to do r.gravity is also built in, 0.1. Let's see how this works. So it's just going to be one projectile. Later we're going to have 20. Let's see how this works. Alright, so now it's kind of random. Pretty cool. Oops. And now it's going to fly off screen. Alright, as you can see, it's like a totally random direction. So now let's have like 20 of these. So to do that, we're going to do, instead of copying and pasting this, like this, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. We're going to type in repeat 20. And then we're going to select these lines and press tab. And that's how you move them one in. If you ever even move them back, like press shift tab. Oops. So yeah, this is pretty handy. Tab and shift tab and selecting. So let's see how this works. I'm going to actually change speed to 4. So let's see how this works. And yeah, random 360 is just a random direction from 0 to 360. Cool. Alright. That's not how I want the attack to be like, but now it's kind of sort of interesting boss, right? Sort of. Wow, I did not think I'd make it through there. So here's what I want to do. First, I want to change the speed to be a random number. That'll make it more interesting, and I just know that from experience. So random, and you probably know it if you played a lot of Fangames. So 2,5. Let's change it to like that, and then also I want to change this spread to be different. So I'm going to type in random range 0, 180, and this is the same thing as typing random 180. If you type in underscore range, it takes the lower bound and the upper bound, but without it, it just assumes the lower bound is 0. So also to type in comments, you should do double slashes. Maybe I should have been doing that. So let's just do that real quick. So phase 0, fly down. And I'm not the authority on where to use comments and where to not, but I'm just showing you what I might do. Phase 1, fly up. 2, fly horizontally, track player, and then what this does is explode rocks, or let's just call it throw rocks. So let's it doesn't really matter where I put these. So this is just so if I ever glance at this code, like say in a few minutes, and I forget where everything is, I can like, okay, this is fly down, this is fly up. Okay. So let's see how this looks. Oh my god, I'm already at 28 minutes. Jeez, this is gonna be a long one. Alright, that's kind of more what I wanted, I think. So let's actually make this pink thing invisible. I know that's probably bothering a bunch of people. So let's finally make it invisible. So that's kind of what I wanted. Let me change the speed down to 4. I think that's, yeah. What else? All right, now we need to, okay, now we have like the basic attack down. I'm pretty happy with that. Now what's next is making it shootable. So you can click add event. One way to do this is through collision event. So collision player bullet. And I'm gonna do the ritual. Here we're gonna have a variable called HP. So let me actually go into the create event. HP equals 10, sure. So we're gonna decrease this once every time we collide with bullets. So HP minus 1. And then also if HP is less than or 0, instance destroy. And if you don't have a with other object before it, it's like considered with yourself, so it destroys yourself. Alright, so this should work. Also we want to do with other instance destroy. And in this case other means in the collision event it means the object you put here, so the object that it's colliding, so it destroys the bullet. So yeah, we can now kill the boss. Just in the most basic way possible. Assuming I don't die. Alright, good. And it's a double KO. So now we want to add iframes. And it's always a good design decision usually to have iframes. Be very sure of what you're doing if you don't use iframes. So iframes, we're gonna have, this is the way I do iframes, is iframes equals 0, and whenever iframes this value is 0, that means he's vulnerable. So they're vulnerable. So I only want to be able to hit him if iframes equals to 0. And I'm going to surround this whole thing, press tab. Otherwise, I don't want this bullet to do anything. So, and then also I want to set iframes. Let's say like we want 20 iframes. We're going to set it to 20. So right now, if we run the game, what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to shoot him once, and then iframes is going to be at 20, and it's going to be at 20 forever. And I'm never going to be able to shoot him again. So I shoot him once, and then that's it. He's invulnerable. So now, obviously, what we need to do is count down every frame. So I'm going to put this at the top, because why not? I'm going to do iframes minus equal to 1. But we don't want iframes to go below 0 because of the way I've done it. So we're going to, like this code always happens, by the way. So if we don't put it in an if block. So here we're going to do if iframes is greater than 0, subtract by 1. So this way, if it's 1, it's greater than 0, so subtract to 0. But if it is 0, this does not execute, so it stays at 0. Also, what I'm going to do to add a visual effect is to when he has iframes, which is always nice. So if iframes is greater than 0, image alpha 0.5, that makes it transparent, else image alpha x1. Don't worry if you can't type as fast as me. I've been typing a while. So, alright, now he has a little visual indicator. And then also you can tell he has iframes. Pretty cool. And you can add on your production value, etc., etc. We're not focusing too much on the production value right now. Pretty cool. Hey, so this is like right now, like this is like in some ways passable. So if you've gotten this far, give yourself a pat on the back. Man, I'm just realizing that I have so much more planned. I'm gonna need many videos for this. Okay, even I'm trying to go as fast as I can, but it's still not fast enough. So what's next on the list? Let's have, okay. Okay, I wanted to, so the idea is he goes, the reason he dips down to the ground is so that he picks up rocks and he throws them from his claws. That's the idea. He's not just exploding rocks within nowhere. I should have mentioned that earlier. I think I mentioned that. So here what I'm going to have is, first we want to make the objects explode from the correct position. So instead of x comma y, which is the bird's position, we're going to type in like y plus 100. And I'm just going to guess at 100 and then hit F5 to compile. And see if that's what I want. Alright, maybe a little bit lower. So I'm going to type in 130, and this is just guessing, by the way. And then now what I want to do is draw the rocks in his claws when he picks them up. So I'm going to add the draw event, and then usually you don't need the draw event unless you're doing, well, obviously the draw event's only for like technically a production value or whatever. Obviously we don't need the rocks, but they're just, this is just purely a visual thing, because I think it'll make the whole thing come together. So in a way, so we're going to type in draw underscore self, and okay, this is going to be hard to explain. If I don't have the draw event, like let's say I get rid of it, the boss is going to just draw its own sprite, animated, everything's correct. If I do the draw event and there's nothing in there, what's going to happen is, okay, actually let me put in the code here, press OK, run the game. What's going to happen is the boss is invisible, but it's still the boss. So you have to always put in draw self, which is, this is what the draw event does normally if you did not specify anything, if that makes sense. So in addition to that, we're going to do if phase 1 state 0, and then that's going to be 1 actually. 1 or, okay, yeah, or phase 1 state 2. This is going up, remember, and this is going sideways. we're gonna do draw sprite stone, and then when you type in draw sprite, look at the bottom of the window here, and you see how it's, if your cursor is like in the correct position, like over here, it will tell you what arguments it takes. These are called arguments, what the function takes. So sprite is first, and then comma, subimage, which is like, it's only one frame in the stone, so 0. And then x position we want to draw it at, which is like our x position, and y position, which is like y plus 120 or whatever. We'll guess at that. So, by the way, when I type in OR here, that's a good, the normal way you type in OR is 2 pipes like this. That's like you have to look on your keyboard to find where they are. Or if you want to type in AND, like you can type in AND like this, or you can type in 2 and ampersands. But I like this. I'm in the minority, so you can do whatever you want. You can also put in, like if you're a normal person, you'd put in parentheses here. But some languages, well, I wouldn't consider myself an abnormal person for not including the parentheses. But, and also you can also omit the semicolons like I usually do. So anyways, let's see if this works. Alright, it is working. It is certainly working. It looks a little weird, but it's working. So, I'm gonna, it's so funny when he flies off the screen. So, I'm gonna move it to the left a little bit, so x minus like 20, or maybe 30, and then move it up a little bit. And also, well, I'll show you what I'm gonna do later. Alright, so that's sort of what we want. Sorta. Okay, it's exploding it. Actually, you want to explode it at this position too. So minus 30 plus 90. So that's x minus 30, y plus 90. Okay. And it's actually a little bit weird how we're spawning them to the left of the actual place where it's targeting to, because it's targeting using x, not x minus 30. So that's a little weird, but whatever. That's, yeah, so really, let's actually fix that. So I'm going to change the x position to right here between the claws. So that's, you can click on the image to do that. So this should be maybe like x minus 15 now. And this should also be x minus 15. We want to actually draw multiple stones here, is what I wanted to do. So I kind of want to do a fancy way. Yeah, let's just do the fancy way. I'll just show you. This is not common what I'm going to do in the code, but it works. It's kind of cool. All right, that's what I want. That's what I want it to look like. But I want to have multiple stones there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do random. So actually, I'll show you what I'm going to do. So repeat 20. I'm going to draw 20 stones all in the same place, except they're not going to be in the same place anymore. They're going to be x minus 15 plus random range negative 30 to 30. And then y is also going to have an added random range negative 30, 30. By the way, what I'm doing here with the random range and the positioning and stuff, you can also just, you can apply this to regular attacks, not just holding the bird stones. Anyways. So this should draw like, yeah, let's do 15. Let's actually do 40, 40, 40, 40. So what's going to happen here is they're just going to jitter around. It's going to look really silly. That's so silly. That's even sillier than I imagined. Also, that's like too much. So maybe 20 and 20. So here's what I'm going to do to make them in the same position. They're going to still be random, but the same random position every frame. So random set seed 1 through 4. And that doesn't matter what number you choose. And then here I'm going to do randomize. And this means whatever random numbers I use later, such as during the actual attack, the randomness of that, it's still going to be random, but this seeds it. And if you don't understand seed, it's like, I don't really want to. Anyways, I'll just show you what it does, and it'll hopefully make some sense. right, so now they're at a random position. Pretty cool. And it's going to be the same random position every time. As you can see, there's a little weird gap there. Let me actually just change the number a little bit because I don't like that. I don't like that arrangement. All right, that one's okay. So it just flies off screen. I love it. It just gets me every time. Here, when I want to create the attack, I'm gonna add in random range. So I'm gonna actually do this a little cleaner this time. So I'm gonna do var v equals to 20. Let's actually move that. It doesn't matter where I put this really, but just to show you. So plus random range and v to v. So if I'm smart, I would have, well, okay, I'm not going to, I could have realized that instead of putting 20 in 4 places, you just put V there. And if I ever want to change it, I can do that. So I should have done that here, just because. Let's do it. So let's see if this works. So I just wanted the actual stones to... I'm doing this in a weird way now that I'm coding it, but it's fine. Alright, this is kind of a cool attack, I guess. It's okay. There's many things I need to fix, but it's okay. Alright. It's kind of cool. I'm having too much fun just looking at it. I need the, let's make these stones fly a little farther. Why don't we? So, let's change speed. There's multiple ways you could do this. I'm going to change the gravity to be a little bit less, and also increase the speed a little bit more. Is that what I want to do? Let's see how that works, I guess. I also want to, when I draw these, I'm going to draw them at a random angle. So here's how you do that. Draw sprite ext, and then what the ext function is, see how draw sprite, there were 4 things, now there's like a billion things. So for x scale and y scale, we want to put 1 because we don't want to scale it. Rotation, this is what I want, random 360, because rotation is between 0 and 360. Color is C white, just we don't want to tint it or anything. And alpha is just 1. Also, here's what we can do now is when we create the projectiles, we can do r.image angle equals random 360 to like randomize these angles too, which should look a little bit cool. Hopefully. Alright, that looks a little weird. Not sure if I like that. I guess it is random. It's just weird because of the shading I put on it. Anyways, okay, now that they're exploding in like the correct, like it's actually tough to dodge. Or like it extends to the edge of the platform, which is what I wanted. Perfect. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool attack. So let me there's like multiple things I could do. I don't want to take this video to go on too long, but what else could I do? If I want to get fancy, and let's get fancy just to work with the variables some more. Here I could type in seed equals 0. Okay. And seed is going to store the seeds so that every time I pick up rocks, it's going to be a different seed we put here. So here we're going to do seed equals random. Let's just do irandom that number. I don't know exactly how this works. It's random enough for me. Don't worry about it. So at this point in the code is like, it's still randomized. The only point when it's seeded is within these two, like this section, if that makes sense. So this is still a random number. And actually seed should not be here. This should be, otherwise that's like literally random every time. It's gonna be vibrating, it's gonna be really silly. So what we want is to, when we pick it up, set the seed. So this isn't really that gameplay focused, it's just like a nice little, oops, that's not correct. This should be here in this transition, because if you saw the rocks, that was during the wrong transition. Maybe I should speed this video up, like 1.5. All right, let's actually, one more thing that might be nice to do is if the bird is facing, let's make the bird face different directions. So if x is greater than object, or let's say if object player.x is less than x, that means we should face left. So image x scale equals to 1, which is facing left. And really what I should be doing, I should have had this bird face the other way, but it's too late now. And then here we're going to do else image scale is -1, and -1 means flipped. If I put it to 2, it would be like stretched out, but we just want it to be this or flipped. And then do you notice one thing I forgot to do here is when I do .x, especially with object player, is the main one you have to be concerned about, because the player might be dead. If I try to access this, it's gonna, if the player dies, it's going to crash the game. And this might be obvious if I run the code right now, but it might not be obvious if it's somewhere deep nested in your code, some rare scenario that crashes the game. You don't ever want that. So here we're going to do if instance exists. All right. If there's nothing like, so instead of, let's see if this works first. There. And if you wanted to, we could, instead of setting the x scale like this, let's actually show you a different way too. So I can do, to comment it out, you can, this is another way of doing comments, by the way. You can do like this and does the whole block, or this is just one line. So in the step event, let's say we want to change the direction whenever, actually let's copy this. So let's actually show you one small tool. So before we stop, so I'm gonna make a new script. I'm gonna call this scr face player, and then I'm gonna copy this in here. So now we can, so we know what this does. So here, let's just comment it out as scr face player, and just put in the parentheses. So here we want to, let's turn to face the player at like the transitions. So scr face player, and then copy this to all the transitions. Let's see how that looks. So it's not going to turn around mid-flight, is what I wanted to happen. Okay. So if you want if you want it to animate that way, it's your choice. Or if you don't want it to flip it during that transition, you could just remove it from the correct place, if that makes sense. And the reason I did it as script, I could copy the contents of the script, but of course that's not good. So use scripts whenever you need to. You can create as many of them as you want. Yeah, I'll touch more on that later. So I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna stop it here because the video's already gone on for freaking 50 minutes. I didn't realize it'd take this long, but hopefully I will maybe add another conclusion onto this. So yeah.